Your plan will never work. Something will stop it.
Hello everybody, this is a video that is a response to a few other videos, specifically Greg from another Bibliophile Reads, who just nudged me a little bit because I was in two minds whether to do it or not. Because sometimes you can feel like you're repeating yourself a bit, but I think the nature of BookTube is that lots of people don't watch all of your videos anyway, so it's not like you are repeating yourself, because to those individual people, it's the first time they would have heard it. So anyway, that was why I was differing a little bit, because I feel like I am kind of repeating myself a little bit, but it's a really interesting idea. And I think the first person to do it was Michael K. Vaughan. And then when Steve Donahue did it, he basically asked everybody that watches his stuff that knows him to do it. And Greg reminded us of that a minute ago, because he's just done one. And this is about your reading plans for 2023. And this year is a little bit more interesting for me, because I've stacked a whole load of events and challenges for this year that makes it a requirement really to properly keep a track of what I'm doing. So in a minute, once I've gone over three of the big things I'm doing, I'm going to show you something that I've started to help me make sure that I don't forget something for too long, and then like a month will go by and I've done something in that challenge. So I'm kind of got so many things going on that I've got that in place. But there are some things I haven't mentioned yet, and also just in general, it might be an interesting source of discussion in the comments if I do say what I'm hoping to read this year. So I'm going to talk about the three big challenges that I set myself, one of which is an official readathon that I'm co-hosting, but the other two are just my own personal challenges I've given myself this year and probably next year. They're quite long, these challenges, so I'm going to talk about those three first. So the thing that I'm very excited about, that I've started, that I will do a video on it soon once I've read this first book, and I know it's going to be a really interesting exploration, and that's my Ray Bradbury deep dive. And I'm trying to do it as chronologically as I can, and I'm trying to cover as many books as I can. But if there is something I can't get, then I'm going to see if I can cover it with the anthologies I've got, or sometimes a lot of his stuff gets reprinted in different names as well, which is something I've found which is really interesting. So yeah, anyway, I'm going to try and get what I can and make sure I can be as complete as I can, but it is going to take me a couple of years, I think, at least, to go through it all. So I've started already with the crime stuff from the 40s, which is really cool. So the first video I'm going to do, which will be very soon, is going to be the first book I've read. So Ray Bradbury is a really interesting thing for me, because I've loved this stuff since I was a teenager, which was a long time ago. So it's nice to reread this stuff, as well as fill in some of the holes. And I've got some of the latest stuff as well, which there's definitely some holes in the post-80s Ray Bradbury's work. So that's the first thing. The second thing, which I announced a little while ago, is the exploration of fairy tales, folk stories, folklore, folk tales from across the world. So this again will take quite a while. I'm starting with the Brothers Grimm, because certainly for me and a lot of people I think that might watch this channel, that's probably your first port of call when you're a kid. Maybe Hans Christian Andersen as well, but it's definitely a very early way into fairy tales. And then I'm going to try and cover as many different countries and cultures as I can. And once I've covered the big three, I'm going to go into I'm going to go into African folk tales, thanks to a gift I got, which you might have seen a video about that. So that's the second big exploration. It's not a readathon, but I'd love it if anyone did want to join in with it. You know, if I try and keep saying what I'm reading and what I'm going to read next, if anyone wants to join in and buddy read something, that'd be awesome. But at the moment, so from next week I'm going to be starting the Brothers Grimm book, which is the complete stories of the Brothers Grimm. But I'm going to take that relatively slowly, so it's going to take me... I'm divvying it up between the other books I'm reading, so I'm expecting that will probably take a couple of months, I think. But anyway, that's next week, and I've already started the Ray Bradbury thing, and I've already started reading some things for the third thing I'm going to mention, which is the Historathon. So that's a year-long event that I've been very honoured to be asked to co-host. And what's really interesting for me for this one, when Vin from Revenant Reads, who thought of the idea, when he announced it, and there was a couple of other people did some videos on it as well, people that do a lot of history books in their channel, I was quite inspired by it. I have got a history in history. And I've had about a year ago, I did a book about my favourite history books, some recommended history books, and I think my non-fiction one as well includes some history books. But you know, it hasn't been a massive feature of the channel, but it was a big feature of my life when I did my degree. So I spent many years reading history books, and I haven't read history books for a while. Kind of put it to bed for a bit. And I thought this would be a nice reason to read history again. And I love the way that the periods are set out. There's like 3 months per period. And I like that. If you're curious about that and don't know about it yet, just put in Historathon 2023 or look at my previous mentions of Historathon 2023 and you can see how it works. But it's a great event. But what's really interesting for me as well is that... if you know me personally or you've seen the channel, or you might know that I'm a teacher, and I have been asked a number of times since, I've been working at the college that I work at for 14 years now, and a number of times I've been asked if I'd want to teach history, and I'm now at the point where I'm thinking about making a decision about that, and reading the history books is kind of giving me another outlet for making that decision. So that's really cool. So it wasn't really in my head when I decided to do the event, but it definitely is something that I can use the experience to help me make that decision, I think. Although the A-level syllabus is very different from most of the period and the stuff I'll be reading in those periods. So that's kind of an interesting difference between what I'll be reading in the Historathon and what I would be teaching if I was going to teach it. So anyway, that's another reason why that was kind of interesting for me. So those are the 3 big explorations, readathons, reading events, whatever that, however you'd like to say it, that I'll be doing this year. But there's a bunch of other stuff happening as well. But before I go on to the other things, just wanted to show you, because it's so full on in that sense, and I want to squeeze other books in between, I've done this, and this is a Google sheet with a schedule on it, and some of the descriptions are relatively vague because I know there's 2 or 3 books I'll be covering when I look at English Civil War, or when I look at Richard II. I've got a few books from the library about Richard II, and that kind of thing. There's also one thing I didn't put on there yet, is that I'm going to be looking at my witchcraft books again when I look into the 1600s. So, yeah, the Historathon thing could change, but that's a sense of where that is going. And I've got my fairy tales schedule there, and my Ray Bradbury one, which is the first thing I filled in because I wanted to make sure I was reading the books chronologically. So you can see how that's planned out, and there are some holes in there because I usually read about 6-7 books a month probably, so that allows me to put some other things in there in between as well. That's the schedule for those 3 events. So there's a few other things I want to do if I get a chance. There is a video coming up soon about my Harlan Ellison books, and I do want to reread those books, and there's a few books in my collection I haven't read yet as well, so I want to I don't think it's wise for me to say I'm going to do a deep dive into Harlan Ellison and read this many books in a month because I've got so much going on. But I'm so keen to reread the Harlan Ellison stuff that I've done this video to kind of nudge me a little bit, and I'm going to go into that a little bit. I definitely want to do, in the next few months, I definitely want to do my 10 favourite Harlan Ellison stories. So that will definitely happen. But I don't know how far I'll go beyond that. But that's in my plans anyway. So it could be next year, but it could be this year, to read more. And J.G. Ballard is also someone that I've kind of mentioned a few times on the channel, but I want to read more of his stuff as well. I would really like to reread the Sword series by Fritz Lieber, so The Adventures of Fafhrd and Grey Mouser, because they were really important books to me when I was a teenager, and I just really want to read them again. So that's also something in the back of my mind. If I get an urge to go away from the events, the 3 events I'm talking about, and I want to read something else, that could be where I go. And there's also obviously these books that I've bought that I still haven't read, like Upgrade by Blake Crouch, The Anomaly, which I mentioned before, and The Sea of Tranquility, which was new that I still haven't read. So there's these now relatively new, you can't even call them new now, relatively new books that I still haven't read. So this is all going on at the same time as clearly we've got lots of book events as well. So I do know that I will be taking part in the Horror Mayhem. So that's the horror event that happens in May that was started by the Bookish Bryants. And Scott and Becky have already mentioned it to me. So the Horror Mayhem event will happen, and I look forward to that. So that'll be in May, obviously. June, I am definitely going to read something for June on the Range. Last year I read 2 books, and I did I started an anthology, but I didn't finish as well. But I did read 2 novels, which I really enjoyed. So I figure let's do it again. So when Michael K. Vaughan does his June on the Range event, which is all about westerns, I will read something for that as well. So I'm looking forward to that. And then not long after that is Garb August. So I'm definitely going to do Garb August, but it's worth mentioning that last year I did my own event in August as well, Audible August. And I'm not going to do that this year because Garb August is such a great event. So many people get involved in it. It's just nice to try and do that. And in the end, I just concentrated on Garb August last year. So why not just do that from the get-go rather than feel bad for not reading the Audible August stuff. But I do like the idea of the challenge. So the Audible August event for me was about reading books about music or sound. And a few other people got involved, which was really nice. And I read the Howlin' Wolf biography. That was the best thing I read on that front. But I read a couple of other things. But what I'm thinking, it might be worth picking another month that doesn't have a lot going on and maybe going with that. So I'll have a look. But I do like the idea of doing it. But I don't think it should happen in August because, you know, we're all reading trash in August. So yeah, the Garb August thing is definitely going to be something I'll be getting involved in. And last year's New Worlds November was a really, really lovely thing for me. I really enjoyed it, and I got to know a lot of people in our BookTube community, which was really cool. And we already know it's going to happen again next year. So New Worlds November will happen, and I'll be co-hosting again. So New Worlds November will be happening, and there'll be a big science fiction month in November for that, which would be awesome. So through the year, there's loads going on, and I expect it will be like New Worlds November before you even know it. You know, you'll blink and it's there. But there's quite a lot to read. A lot of favourite authors in there. This revitalising of my interest in history, which is really awesome. So again, thanks again to Vin for getting me more heavily involved in that. I do know, just because of my own taste in history, that I think the 2 middle parts are going to be the bit that I get most involved in. So from the year 500 to 1820, I think that period is going to be my favourite bit as far as the event goes. But we'll see. So anyway, that's where I am with this, and I hope you can join in some of that, and please keep watching the videos and making comments. But in the meantime, lots of great reading ahead. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Paint me a picture